You know, there's something rather curious that happens when a man tries to win an argument with a woman using pure logic. It's like watching someone try to unlock a door with the wrong key. Perfectly good key, perfectly good door, but they were never meant to work together. And the more desperately he jiggles that key, the more frustrated he becomes. Now, what I'm about to share with you might make you uncomfortable. It might make you question everything you thought you knew about communication, relationships, and why you keep finding yourself in the same impossible conversations. It's like trying to tune into a radio frequency that's broadcasting on an entirely different wavelength. You're standing there with your AM radio, broadcasting facts and logic and linear reasoning, while she's transmitting on FM emotions, context, relational dynamics, the unspoken symphony beneath the words. Neither frequency is wrong, you see. They're just fundamentally different channels of reality. The male mind often works like a spotlight, focused, direct, illuminating one thing intensely. The female mind, more like ambient lighting in a room, perceiving everything simultaneously, the connections between objects, the mood, the atmosphere, what's missing from the picture. And here's the rather extraordinary thing. Most men spend their entire lives trying to sharpen their spotlight, wondering why the room never becomes fully visible. Fully visible. They never think to change the lighting entirely. Before we go further, let me be quite clear about something. This isn't about superiority. Hmm. Not remotely. I'm not here to tell you that one way of perceiving reality is better than another, or that one gender has cracked the code while the other fumbles in darkness. That would be missing the point entirely. What I am suggesting is that there are fundamentally different operating systems running here. And once you recognize this, once you truly see it, you stop trying to install Mac software on a Windows machine. You stop banging your head against a wall that was never meant to move. But here's what's truly fascinating, my friends. Most people never wake up to this. They spend decades, entire lifetimes, having the same argument in different costumes, wondering why nothing ever resolves. They think the problem is this particular woman or this particular woman or this specific situation. They never zoom out far enough to see the pattern. They never question whether the game itself is rigged. And that's precisely why you're different. You're asking the question. You're looking for the pattern beneath the chaos. But tuning into something most people remain deaf to their entire lives, not most relationships, you see, operate on a kind of mutual hypnosis. Two people agree to pretend. They agree that Monday is terrible and Friday is wonderful, even though they're both just arbitrary dots on a calendar. They agree that success means a bigger house, a better title, more zeros in a bank account. They agree that happiness will arrive when conditions are finally right, after the promotion, after the wedding, after the children, after retirement. But when you wake up from this trance even slightly, you begin to see through the transparent fabric of these shared delusions. That arguments aren't really about the dishes left in the sink or whose turn it is to call the in-laws. They're elaborate theater productions, carefully rehearsed dramas where both parties are playing roles they inherited from their parents, who inherited them from their parents, going back generations. It's about feeling valued, about power dynamics, about unspoken resentments that have been composting for months or years. The disagreement about money? It's about security, childhood scarcity, what wealth meant in her family versus what it meant in yours. The fight about his mother? That's about loyalty, boundaries, whose tribe claims primary allegiance. And here's the truly maddening part. When you try to address the actual issue, when you say this isn't really about the dishes, is it? Too often. Because the agreement in the mutual hypnosis is that we pretend it is about the dishes. We maintain the fiction. The moment you break the fourth wall, the moment you point out that we're all acting in a play, you become the disruptor, the one who won't follow the script. Women are often conducting conversations on multiple levels simultaneously. The surface level, the dishes, the emotional level, do you see me? Do you value my labor? The relational level, are we a team or adversaries? And the historical level, how does this moment connect to every other moment? Meanwhile, men often address only the surface level, wondering why solving the logistical problem never actually resolves anything. It's like treating a fever without looking for the infection. Let me give you some concrete scenarios and watch how the pattern reveals itself. Scenario 1. Your partner comes home and starts complaining about her boss. She details every frustrating interaction, every unfair criticism, every way she's undervalued. She offers solution. Have you tried talking to HR? Maybe you should document it. Why don't you look for another job? And somehow mysteriously she becomes more frustrated. Now with you seeing, what you're really seeing if you look closely is her resistance to sitting with the discomfort. She's not looking to sit down looking for solution. She's processing emotions, seeking validation, wanting you to be her ally in the moment rather than her strategic consultant. But you see something deeper still. The whole pattern is resistance to reality as it is right now. Scenario 2. Colleague obsesses over her upcoming promotion. Every conversation loops back to it. Who's competing with her? Whether the boss noticed her presentation? What she'll do with the salary increase? You recognize the pattern immediately. She's placed her okayness on the other side of an achievement. You see the inner emptiness she's trying to fill with external validation. The promotion isn't about money or status. It's about finally feeling enough, finally proving her worth. But here's what you've realized. No promotion ever fills that hole. The goalposts just move further down the field. Scenario 3. Your neighbor enthusiastically describes her new car, the features, the brand prestige, what it says about her success. You see through it instantly. The car isn't transportation. It's a statement of existence. The ego's proof that she matters, that she's winning at the game everyone agreed to play. You smile and nod, but inside you recognize it. The desperate grasping, the belief that accumulating the right symbols will finally complete her, make her real, make her somebody. Scenario 4. A friend spirals into anxiety about her daughter's college applications. She's researched every school, hired tutors, monitors grades obsessively. You see it clearly. She's outsourced her sense of adequacy to her child's achievements. She's trying to correct her own past, live through her daughter, create the perfect outcome that will finally mean she succeeded as a mother. But you've awakened to something. There's no perfect outcome. Control is an illusion. She's fighting reality itself and calling it good parenting. Scenario 5. Your sister won't stop talking about her elaborate wedding plans. The venue, the flowers, the photographer. She's invested emotionally and financially in one perfect day. You recognize the pattern. She believes the ceremony will transform her, that the right wedding creates the right marriage, that if the aesthetics are perfect, a relationship will be too. You see the magical thinking, the substitution of symbol for substance. But you've realized the wedding and the marriage are completely unrelated. One is performance, the other is reality. In every scenario, you see the same fundamental dynamic. People arguing with what is, desperately trying to arrange external circumstances to feel okay. And here's where it gets rather uncomfortable for you, doesn't it? Because once you see these patterns, once you really see them, you lose your taste for pretense entirely. You can't fake laugh at jokes that aren't funny. Enthusiasm for conversations about. You can't play the social games that lubricate normal human interaction. Someone asks, "How are you?" and expects fine. But you pause. You actually consider the question. Are you fine? What does fine mean? And in that pause, you've already broken the social contract. They don't actually want to know. It's a greeting ritual, not a genuine inquiry. You stop being able to do small talk about weather and traffic and television shows. Not because you're superior, quite the opposite. You're simply too present to pretend. It's like being the only sober person at a party where everyone's drunk on shared fictions. They're having a wonderful time in their consensus reality, and you're standing there seeing it all. The posturing, the one-upmanship disguised as sharing, the desperate performance of successful personhood. In arguments with women, this awareness becomes particularly acute. She's angry that you forgot to do something. On the surface, it's about the forgotten task. But you see the layers beneath. She's questioning whether you care, whether she matters, whether the relationship is secure. She wants you to demonstrate that you were thinking about her, that she occupies space in your mind even when she's not present. So you try to address that deeper layer. You say, "Of course you matter to me." But that's not right either, because now you're intellectualizing an emotional experience. She doesn't want philosophical reassurance about her significance in your cognitive landscape. She wants you to feel something: remorse, empathy, connection. She wants emotional resonance, not logical arguments about your feelings. And the terrible irony? The more conscious you become of these dynamics, the less natural your responses feel. You're watching yourself perform relationship, aware of the strings and pulleys. The script everyone pretends is spontaneous. You become the puppet who sees the strings. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. You can't go back to unconscious participation in the dance. Here's where the chasm really opens up, my friends. Most people, women and men alike, are chasing goals. They're future oriented, climbing ladders, working towards some imagined arrival point where life finally begins. Get the degree, then life starts. Get the job, then life starts. Get married, then life starts. Have children, then life starts. Retire, then life finally starts. But you've stumbled onto something rather extraordinary. Happiness isn't at the destination. It was never at the destination. It's the road itself, the walking, the breathing, this present moment that everyone rushes past in their hurry to arrive somewhere else. Women often express this future orientation through relationship milestones. When are we moving in together? When are we getting engaged? When are we having children? Not because women are uniquely goal oriented, but because society sold them a specific narrative that their value, their completion, arrives through relational achievement. The ring, the wedding, the children, these are supposed to mean something, to transform them, to validate their existence. And when you don't share that urgency, when you suggest that maybe this moment right now is enough, that perhaps we don't need to be rushing toward anything, you become the obstacle. You're the one preventing her arrival at the place where life finally begins, but you see through it. You've recognized that destinations are mirages. Every goal achieved reveals itself as just another point along an endless journey. The promotion doesn't bring lasting satisfaction. The wedding doesn't transform the relationship. The house doesn't complete you. There's a brief spike of achievement pleasure, then baseline returns, and the seeking begins again. So arguments arise not really about the practical questions. Should we move in together? Should we have another? She's playing a game where progress is measured by milestones. You've quit the game, or at least you're seeing it as a game rather than confusing it with reality. You're like a river that stopped trying to reach the ocean and realized, I am water. I am already whole. The flowing itself is the point, too. But she's still river as ambition, believing fulfillment lives downstream. Neither is wrong. They're just incompatible orientations toward existence. And you cannot argue someone out of their fundamental stance toward reality. You can only be present and let them discover it themselves or not. Now we're getting to the heart of it, the rather uncomfortable truth most people avoid their entire lives. You've died psychologically. Not literally, of course. You're still breathing, still functioning. But the person you thought you were, that collection of memories, preferences, opinions, the story you tell about yourself, you've seen through it. You've recognized that your personality is a costume, not the self wearing it. This is what the mystics and sages have pointed out for millennia, what they call ego death, or awakening, or enlightenment. These grand words for a simple recognition. The person you've been pretending to be doesn't actually exist. It's a useful fiction, like Monday or Money, necessary for navigating social reality, but ultimately empty of inherent existence. And once you've tasted this, even briefly, relationship dynamics become very strange indeed. Because most intimate relationships are contracts between two egos. I'll play my role if you play yours. I'll be the husband if you'll be the wife. I'll be strong and stoic if you'll be emotional and nurturing. I'll provide if you'll appreciate. It's theater. Elaborate, often beautiful theater, but theater nonetheless. Women sometimes this death in you, this absence of solid self, and respond with fun, with fear disguised as anger. You're emotionally unavailable, she might say, or you're not fully present, or I don't know who you are anymore. The person she thought she was relationship with has dissolved. The ego character you were playing has exited stage left. What remains is presence without persona, awareness without fixed identity. This creates an impossible situation for traditional argument. She's trying to engage with a someone who isn't fully there as a someone anymore. She's grasping at smoke, trying to make solid what's become fluid. And you can't explain this without sounding either insane or pretentious. Darling, I've recognized the illusory nature of the self doesn't typically go over well at the dinner table. But here's the profound twist. Aloneness is not loneliness. In fact, they're opposites. Loneliness is ego feeling isolated, separate, cut off from connection. Aloneness is the recognition that separation was always an illusion. You're not a separate wave feeling cut off from other waves. You're the ocean temporarily expressing as waveform. How can the ocean be lonely? So let's address this directly, because it's crucial. Solitude isn't the opposite of connection. It's actually the foundation. You can be utterly lonely in a crowded room, surrounded by people, but feeling fundamentally unseen, unmet. And you can be deeply connected while physically alone, feeling the resonance of existence itself, the hum of being that connects everything. Most people fear solitude because they fear meeting themselves. They fill every moment with noise, phones, television, conversation, activity, anything to avoid the quiet encounter with what they actually are beneath the performance. But you've learned something rather wonderful. Solitude is where you stop performing. It's where the costume comes off. It's where you remember that you were never actually alone, because aloneness and togetherness are concepts that only apply to separate objects, and you're not an object. This is why arguments often can't be won. She might be arguing for more togetherness, more communication, more emotional sharing, but she's speaking from a paradigm of separation, two distinct selves trying to bridge a gap. You're increasingly aware that the gap is conceptual, that separation is the illusion we're all trying to maintain and overcome simultaneously. When she says you're withdrawing, she means you're not performing connection in the ways she recognizes. When you're quiet, when you're not offering the reassurance words or the emotional labor she's asking for, it registers as absence. But you're not absent. You're just no longer confusing activity with presence, talking with communication, performing care with actually caring. The foundation of real intimacy, you've discovered, isn't neediness disguised as love. Through solitudes, protecting and greeting each other, as the poet said. It's wholeness meeting wholeness, not two halves desperately trying to complete themselves through the other. So here's what I want you to understand, my friends. You're never actually alone. You're the universe experiencing itself through a temporary human nervous system. Your sense of isolation, that's not a bug. It's a feature. It's awakening wearing the costume of loneliness, costume of loneliness. It's consciousness recognizing itself, which always feels strange at first because we spent our whole lives believing we were the character in the story, rather than the awareness reading it. When arguments with women don't work, when logic fails, when explaining yourself backfires, when you can't seem to bridge the gap, consider this. Perhaps you're not meant to win. Perhaps the argument itself is the illusion, two waves arguing about which is more ocean. Perhaps the invitation is to stop trying to be understood and start simply being present with what is, exactly as it is right now. You are not broken for seeing these patterns. You are not defective for finding social games exhausting. You are not cold for recognizing that the emperor has no clothes, that most of what we call connection is performance. Most of what we call love is need dressed up nicely. Your isolation is your initiation. The loneliness is the birth canal. What emerges on the other side isn't the death of connection. It's connection purified of desperation, presence freed from pretense. The wave doesn't need to argue with the ocean about where it belongs. So tell me, what argument have you finally stopped trying to win? Drop your answer in the comments. Oh, I'm genuinely curious.